Hi everyone, Professor Phil Travis here, and we're in Florence, Italy, the cultural capital of Italy, generally regarded as the birthplace of the Renaissance. And behind me is the most interesting bridge in Florence. This is the Ponte Vecchio. This bridge is the oldest bridge in Florence. It crosses the Arno River. It was originally, in Florence has Roman roots, but it was originally a wooden bridge that was destroyed. But in the high Middle Ages, in the 1300s, the middle of the 1300s, this exact bridge was rebuilt. During the Renaissance, it used to be used for tanners to dump the remains of their product over into the river. But the rich Medici family, the banking family in Florence, put a stop to that and instead began employing silversmiths and goldsmiths around the bridge. Interestingly, this bridge is the oldest standing original bridge going back to the 1300s in Florence, and the reason gets to the Second World War. In fact, during the Second World War, when the Nazis were on retreat following the Allied landings at places like Anzio in southern Italy, as they were being defeated in Italy at the end of World War II, the Nazis were ordered to destroy all of the bridges in Florence, thus to defend their retreat. And one of the Nazi generals refused to destroy this historic bridge. He barricaded it so it wasn't passable, but left the bridge intact so that it wouldn't be ultimately destroyed by the Nazis, and it remains preserved today, the oldest bridge in Florence. We're in the Piazza Signoria, which is the the center, the civic center of ancient Florence, Italy. Behind us is, at the height of Florence during the Renaissance, was the palatial hall of the Medici family. The Medici family controlled the money in Florence. They were a powerful banking family. And this building was very much sort of used as a stronghold to protect the riches from those who had nothing. The windows are actually the height that they are, particularly because they're out of the distance of the stones that might be thrown by a riotous mob. This center too would have hosted many great celebrations. It also would have hosted horrible executions, as well as riots through the ages. Now, the Renaissance refers to rebirth, and this is a period of time in the history of Florence and of the world that is associated with an explosion of culture, of art, of architecture, of sculpture, and of economics in philosophy as well, like humanist philosophy in European history. And sometimes the Renaissance is thought of as a rebirth, a going back to the old age of antiquity. But historians have actually intended to challenge that idea, suggesting that the Renaissance was not as much a break from the Dark Ages as it was a continuation of the Dark Ages. Many of the things associated with the Renaissance were built on things previously established during the Middle Ages. For example, the copying of Roman scripts were largely done by King Charlemagne's scriptoria. The development of movable type printing also occurred in the Renaissance, but it had a sort of connection to the medieval period. But the Renaissance is associated with the development of humanist philosophy, new revolutions in sculpture, in art, and of architecture. One of the most famous pieces from the Renaissance, of course, is Michelangelo's David. And just below the clock tower here, in this piazza, the Piazza Signoria, you see a replica of Michelangelo's David, one of the most famous pieces of Renaissance sculpture. It's a replica because during the 1500s there was a riot and somebody threw a couch out of a window and it knocked off the arm of part of the real David. And so eventually by the 1800s they moved the real David into a museum where it should be in Florence, and they have a really good replica out here. But it very much just the nature of Renaissance sculpture, which was a real revolution in European history, albeit, as historians would say, not necessarily a complete break from the medieval past, but more of a continuation from certain things in the Middle Ages. So if you're in my class, my history class right now, that would be our fact for the week. Is to understand that the Renaissance, the idea of it being a rebirth, a jumping over to antiquity, that's actually largely discredited by historians, and instead is a continuation of the Middle Age period, moving into a new era, the birth of modernity in Western Europe.
Thank you.